If you went for an Alexander lesson, perhaps because you had back problems, or because you were a singer and had heard that this technique could help you improve your performance, you would be taught in a way you might not expect. The teacher would use their hands on you, but not in a manipulative way. Alexander teachers use their hands in a highly specialised and unique fashion. The teacher's hands influences the pupil's postural mechanisms, bringing about improvement in their balance and coordination. This has a significant effect on all their movements and their basic relationship with gravity. Alexander called this use. Use is something people learn to recognise and improve with the Alexander technique. An Alexander teacher is essentially a reflective practitioner, adapting what they do with their hands and what they say to their pupils to meet the changing, evolving process of each lesson. This study looks at how the skill of using the hands is initially acquired. The first clip shows an experienced Alexander teacher giving part of a lesson to a pupil.
And I realised that when, for instance, I was pushing a needle into quite heavy material, I was pushing with my whole body and tensing my whole body. I probably gritting my teeth even. And after some lessons I began to realise that well, I didn't need to use the whole body at all. And I became aware of just using muscles in my arm, perhaps even the lower part of my arm. And I only needed half of the energy, really.
Training to teach the Alexander technique is a 3-year full-time commitment. The training course consists of many elements that contribute towards the development of the skills needed to work on someone else. Walter Carrington has been training students for over 50 years, and the next clip shows some of his advanced students being taken through various training procedures.
Alexander said that putting hands on the back of the chair was the essential procedure that teachers needed to gain the experience of how to use their hands properly and, of course, use themselves properly and all together. So we start with lots of work of hands on the back of the chair, and then when that has been cultivated, as it were, then we're ready to start putting hands on somebody else. And of course there's really no real difference in the procedure, because of course when you're putting hands on the back of the chair, you're not putting hands on to do any good to the chair. You're not doing it in order to give the chair a lesson. And here Anne is putting her hands on Tanya, but she's not in the least concerned with Tanya. Her full attention is on herself, because thereby she's cultivating these good habits that we were speaking about.
How does someone make the leap from working on their own use in procedures such as hands on the back of the chair, as described by Walter, to being able to teach someone else and to respond to what they find under their hands? The skill of using the hands effectively is the core of the training program, and students work together practically in small groups. Here, students are in their second term of training with John Nichols, and the focus of their work is primarily on what they're doing with themselves, not what they're doing to the person they're practicing on. John uses his hands to monitor them and to encourage them to release.
Over and that's it.
This is this low monkey which we found quite difficult.
Did you? Is it difficult because it feels a strain on your knees?
Yeah, the thigh just above the knees we found, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, keep going if you can, and I won't keep you down there very long. It is something that it is, in the early stages, difficult. And you just get more used to it. Back to the hands on there. Tell me if it gets too much for you in the legs. Straighten out the fingers. In there. That's right. Leave the edge of the hands on books. And so often as people do this, they realise how tightly they've squeezed in here, and when they begin to release and open out here, the tendency is for the hands to come apart. So we want to keep the hands together while the upper arms release and the shoulders come apart. That's right. Good, good.
Learning to use their hands, students come across the same kinds of problems they would have experienced when they were first having lessons in the Alexander technique themselves, particularly problems with sensory awareness, not really knowing if what you are doing is what you think you are doing. They are taught to take the same calm, thoughtful approach to the work of the hands-on groups as they did to their own lessons. They work primarily with the concepts of inhibition and direction. John also gets them to use their hands on him so that he can give them feedback from a different perspective. Students rely on accurate feedback from a trained person like John, which helps them to re-educate their own sensory awareness and to develop a methodical approach to their own use whilst putting their hands on another person. Without this, they would simply resort to pulling the person about and giving a very poor stimulus.
Now that's very, very nice. Your hands are very open and elastic on you. Direct lengthening through your thumbs and fingers of both hands. That's right. And keep widening through the shoulders.
As if you're up like this?
You can quite easily stand me up like that. Do it briskly. Well done. Now you did that.
As the longest practicing trainer, Walter Carrington has the last word.
A very definite set of procedures, a very definite set of rules, and it isn't a matter of worrying to get it right or wrong, but as in all games, you do want to do it in accordance with the rules if you're going to get the fun out of the game. That's nice. That's good. And the whole underlying idea is that when you've gained the experience of using your hands in this way on the pupil, you will find that when you come to an actual teaching situation where you're going to actually give somebody a lesson, you're going to approach it in the same way, but of course the difference is going to be that in a real lesson you as the teacher are focusing absolutely on the pupil. You're concerned about their needs and requirements, you're concerned about discerning where they're fixing and stiffening and pulling down, where they're doing it, where they're not inhibiting and all the rest of it. And so you're pretty well absorbed in your observation of the pupil, and of course, a good question is then what happens to you when your attention is directed to the pupil? Well, of course, what happens to you depends on the habits that you have cultivated, that you've acquired, and these habits are what Alexia is acquiring just at this moment. She's focusing on herself. That's nice, Alexia. That's very good. When you're free, give her the signal. That's the way. That's the idea. So we repeat this over and over again, building up the habits in the expectation that when people come to the teaching situation, they'll be all right themselves. They'll be out of harm's way, and they will be able then to give their full attention, their full observation, their awareness to the person that they're working on. Here, where Alexia ostensibly is going to take Tanya out of the chair, she's not in fact going to do anything of the kind, because what Alexia is going to do when she's got her direction going and got everything in working order, she's just going to stand herself up. And when she does that, that gives a very strong stimulus for Tanya to come up with her. There you are. That's right. Very good, Alexia. Now you're going to take and
That's all, folks.